Okay, so you want to learn how to analyze data in Google Sheets, or a teacher is forcing you to learn how to analyze data in Google Sheets. Either way, you've come to the right place. In class, we will have already recorded some data of a ball rolling down an incline using the ultrasonic distance measuring device connected to a TI-84, and you get some data that looks something like this. I'm going to give you on Google Classroom your spreadsheet with the data from the calculator that I take off. You don't have to know how to do that. Later, if we need to know how to do that, I can show you that. But you'll get the spreadsheet with the data, and it's going to look something like what's on my screen right now. There's not going to be any labels, and it's going to be kind of really hard to interpret what the numbers are. You may not even get 4 columns. You may get 5 columns. You may get 3 columns. It depends on how many data runs were collected when you were playing with the app on the calculator. But what you will see is one column will start with 0. That's going to be time. And you can see that it increases in increments of 0.05 consistently. So I want to label this column time, but there's no room right here. This is a spreadsheet software. It's got columns. It's got rows. The columns are labeled with letters A, B, C, D. The rows are labeled with numbers 1, 2, 3. Each rectangle is it's called a cell, C-E-L-L, a cell. And so if you want to refer to this cell, you can call it E1 because that's where it's located. This is G6 because that's where it's located. Haha, G6. There's a song. Okay. If you click here and then you click Insert Row Above, you get a new row. Imagine that. I'm going to label this time, and then I'm going to put the unit because I know it's seconds. And now I have to figure out which one of these other columns is the actual distance data that I want. The way right now that I'm going to do that, because I don't know what all these other numbers are, I need the graph. Yeah, I'm going to make a graph, and I want the graph to look something like that graph. And if it does, it's probably the right data. So I'm going to go to Insert and Chart, and you'll get a blank chart, and you can tell it what kind of chart. We want to make it a scatter plot because we want to find the correlation between 2 sets of numbers, and the best tool for that is a scatter plot. So go over here, click on if you double click this graph, the options will pop up. You can click on chart type and go down to scatter, and then we need to fill in the data so the chart knows what to put on the chart. I want the x-axis to be time. So if I click right there, it brings up this box. If you click in the box and then you go select, left click right here and hold, and then drag down while still holding the mouse. That's one way to select everything. And you put the mouse at the bottom of the screen and it will scroll down. There, that's all the data. Another way to do that is click in the box. Well, it's already selected. Hold on. So, let me erase this. Okay, click in the box, click there, hold down the Shift key and press and hold the down arrow, and it will just keep going down. That's another way to do it. And yet another way, probably the easiest way, is if you just start here, click on that cell, hold down Control and Shift, and hit the down arrow, and it just selects all the data below it, and it stops when it reaches an empty cell. That's a handy shortcut. I'm going to click OK because that's all the X data. Now, on Google Sheets and also in Microsoft Excel, they call the Y values a series of data. And you can put multiple series of data on one chart to see different columns all plotted on the same chart if you want. But I just want to put one column of data, and that is, I'm going to try this one first. Control Shift down highlights all the numbers you can see, and then click OK. And then let's see what that chart looks. Oh, hey, look, that looks remarkably similar to the chart that I thought it should look like. So I'm going to say that's the right data. I think it is. So I'm going to label this column distance in meters. It is you can verify that the calculator says it's meters, and if you look at when I collected this data, I just moved my hand around in front of the distance measuring device. And it was never all that far away. So in meters, 0.14, the farthest away it got was 0.1438. That's like 14 centimeters. That seems right to me. Okay, if we go back and look at the graph, there are some things that the graph needs before it's a happy graph. In order to be a happy graph, you want to, if you double click it, it'll bring up these options over here. Click on Customize, click on Chart and Axis Titles. Right now we're under Chart Title. So we can call this distance versus time. That's a pretty standard convention, is to always name a scatter plot with the y variable first, and then versus, and then the x variable. Next, I want to name the horizontal axis value. That's the name of this axis down here. Well, I put time down there, and I want to put the unit as well, so it's clear that when someone looks at this, what data is on the x-axis. Same thing with the vertical axis. I'm going to name that distance and label it with a meter, or m for meter. Okay, and then if we look, you can close the options. If we look at this data, it's pretty messy. Let's say that the data I actually wanted to measure didn't start till way over here. Well, if I click on these blue dots, it'll show me the values. So if I want to say that's the first one, 4.4, that's 4.4 seconds. So if I go to the time column and scroll down and find 4.4, here it is. So I'm going to hold down Shift, press the left key, and then press the down key a few times to highlight all this. Another option to highlight all of it is to just click and hold and then drag your mouse so that it highlights all of it. Another option is select this cell, hold Shift, press left, now hold Control and Shift and press down, and it selects all of it. Learning these shortcuts for selecting data is really a time saver on a spreadsheet. Then Control and C copies it. If you're on a Mac, it's Command and C. So I copied that data. A handy trick on spreadsheets is you can add pages, but instead of pages, they're called sheets. So click that little plus. Oh, you can't see that. Hold on. Let me do that again so that you can see it. All right, one sec. Okay, now you should be able to see. If I click that little plus, it makes a new sheet, and it's called sheet 3 because I just deleted one. Normally it would be called sheet 2. So I'm going to go here, and I know I want to put names above here, so I'm going to click the second row, A2, and hit Control V. That's the data that I know is my usable or useful data. So I know that's distance in meters. I know that's time in seconds, except I'm used to seeing, and most people put X values first, and then they put Y values on the other side. So I want to highlight all the stuff in this column. A quick way to do that is just click the name of the column, and it highlights the whole column. I know I want to move it, and I don't want it to be there anymore. So hit Control X, and that's called cut. Click the first cell in column C, hit Control V, and it deletes it from where it was, and it places it in the new spot. That's copy. If you copy and paste, the original data is still there. If you cut and paste, the original data disappears and it reappears in the new spot. By the way, copy and cut, these are commands that work all over Windows and Mac, not just in a spreadsheet. Now, a useful feature of Google Sheets, and Microsoft Excel can do this too, is if you highlight all of the data, including the names of the columns, time and distance, and then you go to Insert and you go to Chart, it just is intelligent. It graphs it for you. It puts a name up here, which is beautiful. It puts axis titles, which is beautiful. It puts the data. Wow, so impressive. And then the last thing you can do here is if you go to Customize, Series, scroll down and go to Trend Line, there is an option where you can add a trend line, and then if you go to Label, you can put Use Equation, and it will show the equation for you. So get your data to that point, and don't be afraid to reach out for questions if you have any.